thank you everyone for being with us here today at our launch event for the OMA3 MSF Connect series, which is going to be a speaker series we're going to be running throughout the year, bringing together some of the best minds in Web3 and the Metaverse, DeFi, really looking at how do we engage with these different technologies and push it forward. This event is brought to you by OMA3 and MSF. If anyone doesn't know what OMA3 and MSF is, OMA3 is a consortium of leading Web3 gaming and Metaverse companies building the open spatial web. OMA3 seeks to ensure virtual land, digital assets, and services are highly interoperable between platforms and transparent to all users. OMA3 is open to all organizations, and you can apply to join OMA3 at oma3.org/join. The Metaverse Standards Forum is a non-profit, member-funded consortium of standards-related organizations, companies, and institutions that are cooperating to foster interoperability for an open and inclusive metaverse. The forum's mission is to enable and promote brand cooperation and coordination, open metaverse-related standards activities, and you can learn more and join at metaverse-standards.org/members. And we are very fortunate today to have some of the greatest future-forward leaders in this space talking about how do we drive the metaverse narrative forward and Web3 in 2025. And we are joined by Robby Young, who is the CEO of Animoca Brands. Let's give him a big round of applause if anyone can clap or share in the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Robby. And we've also got Sebastian Oddo, who's the VP of Innovation, Global Innovation at Mastercard, joining us here today. Thank you so much, Sebastian.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Awesome. And really today we're going to be focused on looking at this open metaverse in Web3 and how to steer its evolution in 2025 and beyond. So thanks so much. Let's start with you, Robby.
Sure.
Been an incredible journey through Web3 and the Metaverse. Do you want to just share with us a little bit about where we've been and where you think we are now currently in today's
Sure.
in the Metaverse?
Happy to do that. Thank you, and thank you for having me, and really pleased to be doing this on the moon, because I couldn't think of a more appropriate analogy for Web3. To the moon we go. So this idea really kind of came to life in sort of the early 2020-21 period with the launch of a number of different products out there like Decentraland, and we launched Sandbox, and there were a bunch of other, and then the game community from Web2 really caught on to the idea of thinking about building games and 3D virtual spaces in a new kind of way, using blockchain infrastructure. We had a good run for it for a year or two, and then I think the market headwinds just made it so challenging for new developers coming to the space to be able to secure funding for their project ideas and their visions, that I think it put a bit of a damper on new entrants coming into the space for a while. And so we've seen, I think, a lot of great products coming out over the last year or so, and they continue to come out within the sort of Venn diagram of gaming and metaverse and Web3. And these were all projects that were largely conceived and funded back in the 2021-2022 era. And I think now that the market has sort of, sentiment has turned a lot more positive since the end of last year. I think we're starting to see a lot of new projects also being funded, and I think the second half of this year is going to be fantastic, specifically for people creating interactive experiences in Web3.
Absolutely, yeah. It's so interesting how these technologies go from this initial hype phase, then it goes through this trough of disillusionment, and it's almost this deceptive phase as if nothing's happening. And then just at the right moment, it will hit the knee of the curve and takes off again and disrupts the flow. And you, Sebastian, you've also had some great experience in the space. And looking back, how have you seen Mastercard use Web3 technologies and previous initiatives to really enhance user experience and create these new value propositions?
Sure, yeah, and thanks for inviting me here to speak and to speak alongside Robby, who I didn't know before this meeting, but I've always admired what him and his brand have been doing for many years. So I'm very grateful to be here. So yeah, in terms of Web3 for Mastercard, so for us, we prioritize connecting with consumers, and Web3 is just a tool for us to be able to enhance that. We created a platform called Pass the Priceless, which allows us to distribute digital passes to consumers at events for attending those events, which is really an interesting initiative. We think about Web3 and blockchain as it relates to around next gen loyalty. So when someone comes to a Major League Baseball event, we issue them a digital pass at one of our hospitality events, and now they could join our community. And that's really what we are trying to build with Pass the Priceless. Also, I think technologies. Mastercard is very well positioned. A lot of people to be in Web3. If you could see some of the news that our crypto and blockchain teams have announced with our partners, for example, the Mastercard crypto credential or some of our crypto card programs that people are excited about, that you see people talking about. We're really excited in general around this technology, and we're looking forward to continue to keep building. Robby, I think, what I had said before is just that I've always been admired by what you and your team have been working on. So it's good to be on stage with you here. So.
No, thank you. Thank you. Well, and I think also it's great that you're, so involved with what we're trying to do here, because I think one of our goals behind creating these nonprofit organizations and these forums is just to find a space for people who are maybe native to the industry, and also people who are not native to the industry and have a lot to bring, like yourselves. I think it's great to have a forum to share ideas because you have so many resources and so many customers and business partners and stuff, that if you can sort of help us to fly the Web3 flag and evangelize on behalf of the industry, it's a really fantastic thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, Sebastian, how do you see Mastercard leveraging Web3 to, improve financial inclusion and transform these customer experiences? Like, I think that's a great example of the idea of loyalty. Is definitely a fantastic use case.
Yeah, so we're focused on next gen loyalty. So when you think about, I have 3 young kids at home, and they're all starting to get integrated into what loyalty means, whether it's having a loyalty point program at Sephora for my daughter, or any other sort of program out there. What Web3 next gen loyalty brings is that's true ownership for them over their data, over their loyalty for specific brands. So I think that's where we're focused, and specifically around our Pass the Priceless program. Next gen loyalty is, you could have someone that might come to Arnold Palmer Invitational, a golf event for us, or they might come to a dining event for us. And if we're issuing these digital passes to them as part of our platform, now we can tell that they actually went to a golf event and they went to a culinary event. Could we invite them to a golf event, culinary event on the course with a really cool ambassador? That sort of connection is really interesting. And that's where we're sort of thinking about. And I think that's the most important, is ensuring that it's a safe, secure environment when we're doing it. That's the most important for us.
Amazing. And I think just mentioning Sephora, it's unbelievable how they've captured the hearts and the minds of women and young girls. Every daughter, wants to go to Sephora, or if you can prove that you've got some sort of community-based asset with Sephora, it just strengthens and deepens the relationship with the brand.
Absolutely. I think, as you think about, I think about my daughter and my kids all the time. They go to the store, they go to events online, they go to concerts where they might interact with the brand. So as I think next gen loyalty, as it relates to, like, for Mastercard, for example, or our clients, as as consumers go to these different experiences, it's important to, have a proof of attendance that they went, or an interaction point. Like for example, here, the objectives that you have for people to go and visit the different things that you have here. Those interaction points are opportunity for us to, create that next gen loyalty with that consumer, and show that they are the true fan, right? So when tickets become available for a concert, for example, like Taylor Swift, that we know who the true Swifties are, because they've been to the store, they have merch, or they have listened to music videos.
Yeah. I know, like Gary Vee did that with his VCon tickets. Was and when they first came out, they were really hot items. Those NFTs.
Yes.
And I mean, Robby, there's so many breakthroughs going on in the space.
Yeah. Well, I think also we spend a lot of time thinking about exactly what Sebastian was talking about, which is loyalty, and also thinking about how we can help companies to kind of reclaim those direct-to-consumer relationships. Because I think a lot of companies are struggling because they find that Web2 has disintermediated them from their customers. Now they need to, go via one of the big tech companies and their platforms, because all of that data resides in a handful of major tech companies, and they don't have those direct customer relationships anymore. So as you know, Mick, we've been spending a lot of time building a project that we call the Mochaverse, and now more loosely the Mocha Network, because the idea is that digital identity is actually a really important thing, and we want to use blockchain technology to allow people to own their own data and their own identity, and have agency over how that information is used. And if that information is being used, then they deserve to be compensated for it, rewarded for it, because I think that what we found historically is that some of those rewards, like your, stereotypical airline frequent flyer miles, I'm a member of, here's a good one. I'm going to pick on somebody who's not in the room, but I'm a member of a loyalty program at my local petrol station, right? Let's just say it's a big Dutch company. And I get a reward. If I spend £1,000, I get a £10 reward, right? And you'd think, wow, that really, they're trying to stretch gamification to its limits. I think actually people should be able to opt into how their data is used, and once they own their own identity, if that identity is on-chain and therefore publicly available, what it means is that it confers a level of interoperability amongst other applications, because then other builders, other networks can all connect to that information and be able to make use of that information. And that's really important, because otherwise we just end up creating new data silos. And I think those days are numbered, frankly.
And also, Yat was talking about reputation, what you're doing with the Mochaverse. That idea of, when you own your own identity, you also have your reputation.
Yes. Well, because I think that part is important, because what we want to do also is we want to encourage people to have, let's call it in quotes, positive behavior. And what's positive behavior? A company may view positive behavior as consumer loyalty or spending a certain amount of money with them. And you should be rewarded for that positive behavior, and also know that that behavior is being acknowledged. So it's just like, America famously, consumers live and die by their credit scores and their ability to get credit, because there are these credit rating agencies that provide you with that score, and that is your entire ability to get credit cards or mortgages or things like that. So people spend a lot of time and attention figuring out how to maximize their credit score to enable them to access more credit. And we think that the same logic can apply in a Web3 context, where if I demonstrate loyalty across lots of different experiences where that's recorded on chain, then even if I'm creating a new relationship, I'm becoming Sebastian's customer at Mastercard, he can see me a mile away and say, hey, I see you've got good reputation, so I want you as a customer. I'll let you in the VIP entrance, actually, and grant you access to, tailored services, because I can see that you've demonstrated reputation that also is secure and is provably genuine. But yeah, I think that this idea of being able to leverage, because at the end of the day, your own reputation is your currency, right? And it's being able to say, look, I've had a good track record here. I deserve better. And in a Web3 context, that can also have other implications rather than just consumer purchasing. It can be things like, hey, I should be eligible for an airdrop because if you look at my track record, the last 5 airdrops I've participated in, I have staked my tokens and I haven't dumped my tokens, right? So if you're a new project looking to build community, you can say, oh, I see this person actually is a good holder, right? And that in Web3 has value.
Absolutely. I mean, it's literally aligning incentives.
100%.
Users and owners and participants and.
Yeah, and so that's why we've created this Mochaverse network with the idea that we've built an SDK, which we call the Air SDK, and it allows anybody building an application to access the reputation system just by installing the SDK, because we want to keep it open source, and we want, the idea is to maximize the network effects and the benefits that people have. Wow, Sebastian's really going for the going.
Slam dunk.
Yes, exactly.
Do you like that entrance, Robby?
Going for the action hero entrance. Nice. So yeah, I think it's about maximizing, that ability to demonstrate that you have positive reputation. And once you can do that, so Sebastian, what I was saying earlier, which unfortunately we didn't connect on, is, if we can create this reputation system where essentially we're pre-authenticating customers who come your way, then when you see they have provable on-chain reputation as good customers, you as a business, would be really enthusiastic about saying, please come in the VIP entrance because we can see you've got a provable on-chain reputation that shows that you're the kind of customer we're looking for.
Absolutely. That's so important because and from a regulatory and legal perspective, sometimes we need that. Like we need that in order to come into an experience, especially a digital one. So that's critical.
Yeah.
It actually gives you a lot more data and more information, better insights, while protecting the user at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
100%. And I think this is the area where this really speaks to kind of the rationale behind, when we first came together to think about setting up OMA3, because the idea was, okay, we need these systems. We need to have online reputation. We need to have interoperability. We need to have a way to look at the room that we're in right here on the moon. How do we bring these avatars from place to place, right? And so we need to have some kind of forum for which to think about and discuss what these standards are going to be, because otherwise, if we don't have any standards, we're all going to be building in our own silos, and it's going to be hard to get it to all work together nicely.
Absolutely, like that's a great example of what we're seeing in the Ethereum ecosystem. I know that all of the layer 2s have been building their own sort of standards, and now ETH is coming out with a set standard apparently for all. Do you know anything about it?
So I think my view on this is I agree. There's a lot of fragmentation. Historically, the Ethereum developer community has been pretty good about road mapping stuff, even if it takes a long time and people grumble about that. But I actually think that this is one of those things that in the short to medium term, I think AI is going to increasingly take the role of helping us solve some of these interoperability issues. So that essentially, we're going to end up with AI agents before long that'll allow us to do things like bridging tokens and visual assets and things, because that AI black box is going to be the thing that essentially figures out how to translate something from one environment to another environment.
Absolutely. Thank God for AI, because it's quite a problem. It's been quite challenging. We've been working on interoperability in OMA3 and making some great headway. But I think, as Alfred was saying, he's busy using some AI tools now to really advance the development. Let me ask you, Sebastian, and we're going to open it up to the floor after this. please, if anyone has questions, you can write it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and come close or come onto the stage so that your sound will be projected to everyone. Sebastian, do you want to just share a little bit more about your recent collaboration with the 9DCC?
Yeah.
Just how are you bridging this physical and digital experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did a partnership with 9DCC recently at one of our premier golf events, the Mastercard Arnold Palmer Invitational. And what we did was we designed hats and shirts and golf club towels to that had NFC chips built into them, so that when you tap them, you could redeem a digital twin of it. And one of the digital twins is actually in the back room over there. There's a hat in the back that you could interact with. And that digital twin allowed you to join our community. And that allowed us on site to do some really interesting things as it relates to driving priceless experiences. So there were times throughout the tournament that if you had one of these digital passes, we gave you an upgrade, a seat upgrade, or we delivered a brand ambassador video to you, or gave you tickets to next year's tournament. So it was just a new way for us to deliver priceless surprises to consumers, while also building a large community of golf fans within the Mastercard walls here, because we are we are a B2B company. So this gave us the opportunity to really say hello to our friends and customers that were on site at the event in a really innovative way.
Amazing. And did you was it automatic, or how did you actually do that? Is it was it based on using smart contracts to deliver automatically, or was it a bit of a manual process?
Yeah, so when you tap the side of the hat, I'll give you the example for the hat. You tap the side of the hat, it brought up our website, and on that it said click here to redeem the digital twin. And once you did that, it brought you to an onboarding process that we have partnered with MoonPay. MoonPay is our trusted partner on this one. And so you'd enter in your email, some information there, and then you're able to then start collecting experiences, not only from the Arnold Palmer Invitational, but let's say you come to a Major League Baseball game that Mastercard shows up at, or a dining event, any of those where we're issuing these digital passes.
Amazing, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely cool. And working with the 9DCC team, their work is the quality of their merch is just top tier. So it was really good.
And I mean, Robby, do you think we're going to see a lot more of that this year? This type of thing, of this integration between the physical and the digital, or more, real world assets coming on?
Yeah, for sure. Although I do think we have to be mindful to parse RWAs to two categories, because for me, real world assets is always tangible physical stuff, and then you talk to people in finance and they think real world assets are bonds and other equities that are tokenized. So I think those are two parts of the RWA community, but I 100% agree. And I think we're seeing this already, particularly in some of the higher end, like fashion and merchandise, like 9CC, and also in collectibles. So things like categories like wine or luxury goods and stuff, because I think those tend to be number one, the early adopters, and number two, the places where it makes economic sense, for example, to deploy things like NFC chips or other tags that can be created to link the physical and the digital together, because there is still a cost associated with that makes it difficult to reproduce at scale for lower ticket items.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think there's going to be this, with a lot of the big tech players are talking about that more headsets coming out, like AR headsets, which are definitely going to bridge us the physical and the digital more.
Yes.
And in terms of the metaverse, a lot of people are saying it's the year of the metaverse. It's been going through this deceptive growth, and now the tooling and infrastructure is getting easier for people to join and to take part. What are some things that are exciting you about the metaverse for this year?
Honestly, I think it's literally stuff like this today. I mean, here we are sort of preaching to the literal choir in Ubu, but I think it's the fact that the metaverse got a little bit of a bad rap in 2023 when people felt there was a bit of a hangover of overinvestment in the sector and not enough delivery, because I think that there were unreasonably high expectations. And honestly, as you know, Mick, better than anybody, this stuff takes a long time to build, and it's not easy. And so I think when we think about the metaverse in a more broad and inclusive definition to include social 3D spaces, whether they be gaming or, social network oriented or otherwise, I think we've actually seen an explosion of content. And our goal now is to make them interoperate and to work with each other, as opposed to just being many, many different disparate destinations. So we've got lots of cities in the metaverse, but we don't have any trains and planes to help us connect them yet.
Beautiful. Yeah. Totally agree. And I think, with the help of AI, like you said, we're going to see a lot more of that coming throughout this year. And Sebastian, what's exciting you about the future?
The metaverse has always excited me. My wife is mad at me because I changed our license plate a long time ago to Metaverse in New York. So she has to explain as she's dropping the kids off to school to other moms what that means. I'm actually helping on board, but no, I'm very excited. My kids come home from school and they meet kids at geographic locations online in Roblox and Minecraft and others. This is where the hangout is right now. So I'm excited that that they could actually, of course, with the right wellness plan that my family and I have for them in terms of screen time and all that. But it's just a new, emerging technology excites me. So to see them do that with friends, I have a best friend and their kids play with my kids in a virtual world. And for me, my friend and I used to ride our bikes around the neighborhood, but they're doing it differently. They're exploring new and emerging technology. They're building things. They're creating things. They're using AI. Last night, they were using AI to help them tutor themselves with in Spanish together. I just think that's really fascinating, and I'm excited to see where this all goes.
Absolutely. And I think we've got a question here from Laura, who's asking, in which ways tokenization can leverage the turnover to small to medium company? I'm not sure where Laura is, but I'm not sure. Robby, do you want to take that?
Sure. So I think definitely. I think in the short term, the easiest way to think about one of the advantages to tokenization is that it's a way for you to connect with disparate audiences and customer bases across the internet in a way that you might not have been able to before, because it opens up not just a Web3 audience and Web3 communities to you, but pretty much anybody in online space to not only be able to consume, call it media content or things like that, but to be able to transact directly with you. And that's the fundamental difference with tokenization, because it provides you a way to validate that user is authentic and you are authentic. I mean, it's weird to say this in 2025, but to be able to create a secure and authentic relationship between two parties at low cost across the internet is something only blockchain can do. I mean, Sebastian's company has spent 50 years building a network to do that around the world on a proprietary basis. But now any small business can do it with Web3.
It's inspiring that Mastercard, being such a leader, or having all this history in the finance space, is diving into these new technologies. Are we going to see blockchain payments with Mastercard, Sebastian? Anything like that?
There's our leaders at the company post about blockchain often, whether it's Michael, our CEO, our head of crypto and blockchain, Raj D. Everybody you just follow them on LinkedIn and you'll see what they're posting about. We have teams dedicated globally around crypto and blockchain, and you could see it in the news, the work that we're doing across the board with these crypto card programs. It's really fantastic. And now with AI and blockchain and this idea of like how those two will come together and what that means for cybersecurity and what that means for other emerging technologies is going to be just amazing to watch. But follow them on LinkedIn. You'll see some of the innovations that we're doing real time.
Thanks. Also, if you wouldn't mind just sharing their details in the chat for anyone to follow.
Absolutely.
And I think even in the education space, it's getting really exciting with what you guys, Robby, are doing in education.
Definitely. Well, because I think, so we have something that we call Open Campus, which is a blockchain initiative specifically focused on the education communities. And so we have an EDU token as an ecosystem token there, and we give out grants for people who want to build specifically education related applications, because we think that the opportunity for the education industry to leverage blockchain is fantastic, because at the end of the day, teachers are the original KOLs, right? They're creators and they create content and they have relationships with their students. And, if we can leverage blockchain to create those direct to consumer relationships from teacher to student, that's a fantastic thing. And, the sad part of it is that no matter where you go around the world, teachers tend to be relatively underpaid. And so many teachers have a side hustle in, ironically, education, where they tutor other kids after school and things like that. And Web3 tools, I think, provide a great way to help teachers, to leverage the ability to do that. But again, at very low cost, because Web3 is a great way for you to integrate the ability to make transactions, particularly of digital content, at very low cost.
Yes, it's giving that ownership back to the creators, who are the teachers in this instance.
Exactly, because the last thing that you want is, if you're a teacher and you have a side hustle helping to tutor kids, the last thing you need is some platform sitting in the way and taking 30 to 50% of your income just because the platform exists, right? When you probably already have relationships directly with all your students to begin with.
Absolutely, and I also love the idea of Web3 enabling giving back the value to certification.
Exactly.
How many? I don't know what if your degrees, or Sebastian, I don't know where they're sitting. Are they in your cupboard? Are they on a wall?
We talk about that. I talk about that often with the students that I mentor. That's the first thing I bring up to them is like, where's your certificate going to sit in the future? Right now, mine sits in a plastic folder somewhere in my basement.
Yeah, and we don't actually hold the value. We get our degrees and then they sort of sit on a wall in a closed room somewhere, or no one really knows about it. You stop mentioning it. You stop, leveraging that value that you've got. Now with Web3, you can actually hold that value, and when you connect to LinkedIn in the future, if they have your wallet connected, you could see all of your degrees. Robby, do you have any thoughts on that?
To be honest, in the 30 years since I graduated from school, more than 30 years now, the only time I've ever used my degrees was when it was required as a piece of evidence for a work visa to prove that I actually went to university. But otherwise, to be honest, I got much more out of my education than the degrees themselves.
Exactly, and it's a shame because it should hold its value throughout time. As you've got it.
Exactly.
As a soulbound, as a SPT or something.
Exactly.
A lot of people. I heard a stat, something like 75 to 80% of LinkedIn credentials are manipulated. I swear, and it's a $1 billion industry. The degrees around the world. We've got a question from Alfred Tom. What are some of the under the radar metaverse technologies that will have a big impact later? Is there one or more OpenAI projects quietly working to change the virtual world when they launch? I don't know if Robby, you want to take that, and then Sebastian, you can.
Oh, that's hard. Man, Alfred, I'm going to have a word with you later. So, under the radar technologies, I don't think so. Well, I guess if they're really under the radar, I'm not aware of them. So that, but I think I think the big ones that people are really hoping for at the moment are to see what happens with some of the uh, at least from my vantage point, we come from a gaming background. And so I think we've been looking at people who are building plugins for a lot of the gaming engines, because many 3D spaces that people are creating these days are created using game engines because the tooling is quite good, whether that's things like Unity or Unreal Engine, etc. And in fact, I've seen tremendous content coming out recently on platforms like Telegram, which is essentially rendered in HTML5. And so I think that we're going to see a bleed over of technology. And the best example I can give you is I have some friends working on a Telegram game which you would have a hard time distinguishing from a desktop experience. It's a first-person shooter. It's very, very realistic, and yet it appears in a Telegram browser. And the reason it can do that is basically because the team came from VR and AR, and so they understand how to handle compression and rendering in a way that people who are maybe more native to Telegram and mobile mini apps and stuff are not familiar with. And so I think we're going to see overlapping of those kind of experiences really changing the way we think of lightweight platforms, because at the end of the day, we have to make all this stuff work on mobile because most of the world accesses the internet through mobile. And so to have these experiences be, compelling on mobile is very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Sebastian, do you want to also comment on that?
Yeah, when you think about under the radar technologies, the first thing that pops up in my head is, well, two things. One is around peer-to-peer payments, being able to tip somebody or work with, a creator in the space. If I'm on Discord, for example, being able to like pay somebody quickly and safely. And then the second thing I would say is around agentic AI. This idea that in the future our agents will be doing a lot of the work for us and using our cards to pay for things, right? So when you think about Metaverse, a lot of what my son might do in gaming, he might that agent of his might already know the types of things that he likes, what type of players he likes. So when something new comes out, he might say, automatically buy that hat for me, or on a Fortnite, or automatically buy that skin for me here. So those sort of under the radar technologies that are building that agentic stuff is really going to be really fascinating to watch.
Absolutely agree. And I just wanted to, just to say from Ubu's side, from what we're building here, is that we're trying to take out that friction in the system and, allow it to be a great 3D experience from the browser, very easy to connect. And, us coming from Africa, it is about mobile first, as because that is where the adoption is going to come from, and then to laptops, and eventually everyone will be on a headset. And then also in terms of AI agents, we've built in Nova, who isn't in this experience, but you can chat to and have a conversation and help you in your experience in the platform. And I think this idea of AI agents, like what Robby was saying, doing tasks, making transactions, going to be a massive driver for the metaverse in 2025.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask you guys, as being on the front line of a new paradigm, I mean, over the last couple of years, it's been quite tough. How, on a personal level, how do you deal with setbacks, and how do you keep moving forward and stay true to the vision?
Great question. Thanks, Shane. Robby, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Sure. Happy to wade in there. I think one thing that helps is I've been at this for a while, so I tend to look at things on a slightly longer time horizon. I think, in Web3, there's a lot of young people, which is, no diss on the young people, but they tend to look at things on a shorter time horizon and expect results very quickly. And I think my view on Web3 is that it's an inevitable transformation of how we use the web. And I can't tell you when everybody in the world is going to start using Web3, just like it was very difficult to say the same thing about the web back in 1997. But I can tell you that it's inevitable and everybody will. So my job is to just make sure that we survive until that happens. And so I think that it's about just keeping that faith, because if you look at where we've come from, actually all the signs point to this inevitability, in my view, because you look at something like Bitcoin and Ethereum as being sort of the Adam and Eve of our sector. And these are technologies that have actually been around and been proven for more than a decade. Frankly, my daughter's about the same age as Bitcoin now, and we're thinking about university and things like that. And so I think that you find that actually technology takes a lot longer to adopt and to transform, especially on a mass basis, than we recall. We feel like these things in hindsight happen quickly, but actually they took a really long time. It was probably 10 years from my first email address to when most of the people I knew had email addresses, to be honest. And so I think we'll see the same thing in Web3. So I would say keeping the faith is about understanding that this is inevitable, but it may take a while. And so if you're especially working in a startup environment, you need to have runway so that so that you can last until the good times ahead.
Thanks for that. Yeah, totally agree. It's you got to have that belief. If it's inevitable, it's really about having the belief to get you. Sebastian, do you want to also comment on that?
Yeah, I just think of my parents. I wasn't around during the read phase of the internet, but I was around for the read write phase of the internet, where I was telling my clients, I was telling my parents that Facebook and social and other big platforms was going to be a thing, and everyone thought I was crazy. And now,
Yes.
right? And I actually helped set my university up on Facebook, so I have a screenshot of that set up. So that's where we are with the read write own phase of the internet right now, which I have no doubt in my mind that blockchain will play, even with the advancements of AI and the narrative of AI now on top of everything. It's even more of a reason why blockchain is so important to the internet and to our civilization, because of the authenticity, that proof of authenticity. I believe that with everything in me, and I always look back and say, people thought I was crazy, and then they'll look. I've been wearing this hat that has my contract address for one of my avatars on it for the past since 2021.
Wow.
And I don't take it off, and I that's how much I believe.
That's incredible. Wow. Yeah, that's really fantastic. So guys, we are running close to the end. If anyone has any other questions, please, you can.
Yeah, guys, I would love to jump in if possible.
Sure.
If that's
Jay.
great. Hey guys, what's up, guys? Jay here from Ozone. Oh, I think I flew a bit too high here. I want to take this maybe one layer deeper in the tech discussion. I mean, there's of course Web3 interoperability, and I think the ecosystem is building a lot of ways that we can interoperate cross-chain in terms of 3D graphics and 3D technology. As you all know, the other engines are built on C#, C++, which we call like the downloadable paradigm. And although some of the stuff can come on the browser, but it doesn't solve for interoperability. I see Charles mentioning the open metaverse, right? So interoperability, portability of 3D assets. So what do you think? And of course, the web, right? A lot of the legacy engines are not really web native. How do you think we can solve for this interoperability and portability of 3D content across virtual worlds?
Who wants to take it?
Okay, I'll start with the lightweight version, and with the massive caveat that I'm not an engineer, so I'm going to bluff. So I think one of the things, and Alfred can back me up here, that I think is great about OMA3 is that actually we have what we used to call the portaling and mapping working group, who have actually come out with a white paper on this very subject. The idea of how you can bring assets from one 3D space into another and think about the translation of those standards of those assets, whether it's the way that they're rendered or how big the size they show up in and stuff like that. I think at its most basic, one of the great things about having Web3 as the underpinning is that we at least have the facility to interoperate tokens and anything that is tokenized and any data that is attached to those tokens from place to place. But I completely agree with you, Jay, that this is in fact one of the key questions of why we started OMA3, because we all realized that, okay, so I can transfer my ERC20 tokens, I can transfer my 721s and my NFTs, but actually, how's my Bored Ape going to render from one place to another? Is it going to look the same? Is it going to be too big? How do I bring it into Sandbox? Does it have to be voxelized when it shows up, or can it be highly rendered in 3D, et cetera, et cetera? Those are difficult questions to answer. And usually my cheeky response is, please come join OMA3 and help us solve it.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Robby. I was on top of what you were going to say. It's like, this is an area of opportunity right now. I think Jay brought up a really excellent point. Like, now's the time to figure that out.
Yeah.
So it's really something very interesting for us to put on the table.
100%, guys, and we are aligned, and that's why we joined OMA3 and the father of 3D graphics and GLTF standard, Tony Parisi, is on our team. So we're happy to be here and help as much as we can, guys. Thank you.
Brilliant. Yeah, at Singularity, Peter Diamandis has got a great saying, if you want to make $1 billion, solve a billion people problem, so it's a big challenge, this interoperability. Guys, we've got time for one or two more questions if anyone has any. And then I think we'll just go into, just some closing remarks from Sebastian and from Robby around, what are some of the exciting things coming for this year and for the years and beyond, and anything else coming from Mastercard, Sebastian, that we can be excited about?
Yeah, so I would say I'm going to put in the chat here our website, connect.priceless.com. Stay connected on there, set up an account on there, and as we are going to be launching many more experiences on that. So if you stay connected on our social channels as well, you'll see what we're doing there. So, and then I'll just say, like, we have to. There's a lot of craziness happening in the world right now, and we have to remember at the core of Web3 was supposed to be inclusive, right? At the core, we were going to be start from ground up. We were going to be inclusive of everybody. That was, from what I remember, the narrative from the beginning, and we cannot lose that. So I'll just say to this group of influencers and leaders around this forum, let's please protect that, because there are people who, for example, who might be blind, who might have an invisible or visible disability, that Web3, we have to be thinking about those individuals as we build from the ground up, and not just continue to build what we did in Web 2 and Web 1. Now's a chance for us to redo a lot of those efforts. So that's what's on the back of my mind always. Those are the people that I'm talking to and how we can build a better future. So
yeah, totally agree. And I think that when we talk about that, inevitably this term financial inclusion comes up as well. And I think the best way to look at that, when you think of it purely from a capitalist point of view, is that there are 1 billion people out there who are not our customers yet because they haven't had access to financial services or things like that as far as the traditional banking system goes. And that's a massive opportunity. So it's something that we can take advantage of. Absolutely
agree. Banking the unbanked, especially in Africa, that's really a big challenge still to solve. I see there's one question from Nosipe, who are asking, recently Tim Sweeney from Epic Games started seriously to mention the interest for his brand to leverage the concept of interoperable metaverses. My question is the following: is there any chance such behemoths manage to bypass blockchain technology in an effort to keep a sense of centralization of their consumer base and allow for only a very selected participants to their ecosystem?
That's 100% what they will try to do. 100%, because many of these successful businesses are based on quasi-monopolies, and so it's a challenge for them because they view the world through that lens of creating a walled garden, and that's what success looks like to them. And then once you have a big business, and I mean, Tim Sweeney has built an amazing business, then there is the fear, because the fear is, if I open in the interest of making the pie bigger and take down the walls of my walled garden, is that going to affect my core business? And are my shareholders going to want to hang me because actually it may not go right? So it's safer to just keep doing what we're doing. And that's, that's why big companies evolve slowly often, because there is that reluctance.
Absolutely. The antibodies are going to always fight off innovation.
Exactly.
Going to disrupt their seats at the table.
Exactly.
But guys, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate you coming together for this launch event. We're going to be hosting a number of these sessions throughout the year, so make sure to look out to join OMA3 or MSF. Let's give a big round of applause for Robby and Sebastian, please. If everyone can unmute yourself. Let's hear some noise, guys. Come on.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Robby and Sebastian, thanks so much. Thanks to everyone in the audience. I see Elena here, who I actually met. I know you've got the Sensorium Metaverse. Thanks for joining. Guys, how can anyone reach you or get in touch?
Just you can DM me on Twitter, or reach out on LinkedIn or any one of those platforms, or just come to an OMA3 meeting.
And Sebastian, how could folks connect with you?
Same thing. I just put it in the chat. Be positive on X, and Twitter, and then and LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And sorry, guys, we took out the ability to copy links in the chat. We've got an AR game show game where you have to write creative storytelling, and guys were cheating if you could copy and paste.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
See you around.
Take care.
Bye.
See you on the next one. Cheers, everyone.